I can't believe I actually did it. So I actually managed to finish this puzzle, but before I get to what this puzzle taught me and what I learned, I would just like to run you quickly through the last sections of this puzzle and my struggle in completing this beautiful beast. So this is just a reminder of where we left off at the end of the previous video. And as previously, I just went through the cardboards, tried to fill up as many spaces as I can, grew the islands as far as I can, and if I can, I also created new islands. Even if it's just two pieces that connect together, those will eventually fit next to something else, and that means progress. The progress is very slow at this stage, but I took any progress as good progress. Every single piece that fitted somewhere was a small victory that I definitely celebrated. And at no point, even this far where I start to work with mainly browns, I can't say that I got frustrated at any point. You will also note that at this point I started to use the poster more frequently, as the poster was indeed the picture bigger than on the box, so more detail was visible, but it was scary how big the puzzle was compared to the poster. The image, how far they've blown it up, and the detail that's visible on the puzzle that's not even visible on the poster. So you will frequently see me taking out the poster, as at this point it definitely became necessary to study the pieces more closely as on the image. As you can see on the cardboard, everything looks brown. It's dark brown, it's red brown, it's light brown, but it's brown. And it's becoming more and more difficult to determine the differences between them. Detail doesn't stick out as much as in the top part of the puzzle. Pieces are definitely becoming more alike than previously. There was still a bit of greens in between, which helped a lot, although the greens are so spread out over the puzzle, it was difficult for me to determine which greens go where, and only when I assembled a piece or two it was easier to recognize the pattern or the color differences in them. So we've reached the first check-in point for this video. Then the top part of the castle is still a little island that needs to be completed. The bottom part of the castle grew somewhat, for which I'm very happy. The biggest empty space is on the right hand side, so I still need to work a lot on that. There's a couple of islands that needs to be connected, and then the bottom here, the roof's also connected to the little pathway there. The middle section I still haven't connected to the top or the bottom, so that's my next mission for this middle part of the puzzle. Here on the left hand corner I managed to connect some of these islands to the bottom and to the top. I'm very happy with the progress, and it's filling up very nicely. So even though I reached the most difficult part of this puzzle with all the dark colors and the browns and everything looking the same, it did feel like the progress at this point is starting to pick up. It's faster than in the beginning, although the top part was much easier to recognize the pieces. And I can only assume it's because there's fewer pieces left. Everything that is left is now visible to me on the cardboard, and I don't have as many puzzle pieces to consider for that pieces that needs to be assembled, or the gaps that needs to be assembled. And then also the gaps are getting smaller, so it's now easier to see the shapes that you need to complete that gaps or fill in that gaps and make them smaller. And because I shape sorted from the very beginning, and because the cardboards are getting fewer, it's easier to recognize those pieces, even though they are very, very dark at this point. And then obviously, because it took me so long to assemble this puzzle, I did not take a time lapse or photos or videos of every single piece that I assembled, and you only see some of the video footage. If I had recorded every single minute that I puzzled on this image, it would have been hours long videos. So here is the next check-in point. I filled up that gap in the top of the castle. And again, the islands got connected. There is some more pieces that's together, and that means there is progress. Again, the biggest gap is on the right hand side. Here in the middle, I connected both to the top part and to the bottom, and I grew again some of these islands and sections, and the gaps are getting smaller by the hour, and I am just happy with the progress. Still not yet frustrated at all. So the next thing that I can point out is that even though there is color differences, there's a lot of sections that the pieces look the same for the left as to the right. So in the bigger picture you can see the difference, but if you've got the single piece in your hand, it's difficult to determine which piece goes to the left, which goes to the right, which would have been eliminated if I did the puzzle by the bags. If I did one bag to the left, I would not have had to consider on which side the pieces belong. But since I mixed it, it was a bit of an extra challenge for me to determine if it goes to the left or to the right. But I'm not yet regretting mixing the pieces. If I had to do this over again, I will definitely mix the pieces again. And somehow the left part of the puzzle came together quicker than the right. I don't know, the right part either scared me or it wasn't as easy to determine as on the left hand side. The left hand side filled up faster for me than the right hand side. So at some point you will see that I focus more on the left hand side, because my thought was that if I can fill up one side, the pieces that remain can only be to the right side, and I don't have to consider left, right, and it will be easier. And it definitely helped in that sense that I eliminated more of the pieces that looked like they can go on either side. And from here on out, I must say the progress was so much faster. It felt faster. I can't believe how much I got done in the last 3 days compared to the first 3 days, for instance. So the next checking point, here you can see it definitely is starting to come together. The gaps are getting smaller, and the pieces that are assembled are getting bigger. And still the right hand side, even though there is some progress there, is still the biggest gap that needs to be filled out. But all in all, I'm very, very happy with the progress. At this stage, I've got about 12 empty cardboards and very few that still has got pieces on them. Mostly the cardboards now contain 2 boards for every shape, except for the 2 innies and 2 outies, which were the most pieces. I think at this stage there were 4 cardboards for those. So again, my mission is to empty them up and get to a point where they can fit on one piece shape on one cardboard, and after that then the goal was to get to a point where I can get more than one shape on a cardboard, which helps again, especially for these little gaps where it's easier to determine the shape that I need to fill them up. So again, you will see the left hand side, it's nearly complete. I got stuck there because what was left on the left hand side was basically black. It's pitch black, and some of these pieces are so black there's zero detail on them. So I thought, okay, I got enough done on that side. I'm happy to move to the middle section, and then obviously I tackled the right hand side at the very last, and it helped because once again, the fewer pieces there are, the easier it is to recognize the shapes and the very little detail that is still visible on the pieces. But from here on out, it's mostly dark brown and almost black pieces. I think I've got some greens left, but those are so dark as well. It's difficult to determine if it's part of trees or if it is part of shades of the buildings. Yeah, I'm eventually reaching the point, 1 shape per board, and they are, some of them very few. This one has got 2 shapes on. Those are the fewest of that 1 shape. These are the curvy pieces, and then the castle pieces, and the 2 innies and 2 outies is now on 2 boards only. So I'm very happy. So this is the last check-in point for this video, and I am nearly done. The sections that's now remaining is very small compared to what was left on the previous check-in point. I filled out so much of the missing pieces. I filled up so many gaps. There is obviously still gaps left, but I'm hoping to do these in a day or two. And the biggest section, once again, right hand side, but even that gap shrinked a whole lot compared to the previous check-in point. So I was able to fill in that last gaps, and for the longest time I thought there was a piece missing, but luckily my mom found it and I was able to insert, and I will show it to you right now, the very last piece, the 8,000th piece. And just look at how beautiful this puzzle turned out to be. I am super excited that I finished my biggest puzzle to date. So I've got a couple of things that I quickly want to touch on before we finish this video. Educa, the brand, love the brand. I personally love it. I know some puzzlers don't like it because it's thinner pieces, there is a looser fit, so it's not perfect at all, but they did perfect the connection of the sections, the repeat cut. I've seen some videos recently by other brands where the sections did not connect properly and there was an issue with that. I had nothing, zero of that sort of problem with this puzzle. Every repeat cut connected perfectly. I wouldn't been able to tell where the connections were if not for the false fits. I had about 3 pieces that I misplaced from the one side that I had to exchange on the other side, and I had to go look for those pieces. Initially I thought there would be 4 repeats. There was one on this side and one on the middle, and then on the top it basically repeated itself again, but the last one that, or the second to last one that I looked for was at the very end here. So that was 6 repeats that I know of. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but, and I can't confirm, but I think there might possibly be actually 8 connections and repeat cuts on this puzzle. I didn't use the repeat cut to assemble the puzzle, only to find the pieces that I misplaced and misfit. But other than that, absolutely perfection. I loved everything about this puzzle. This puzzle taught me that slow and steady wins the race. Patience pays off. So I did not rush myself with this puzzle. I did not get myself a benchmark of how fast I want to do it. It took as long as it took. I started sorting the pieces on the 28th of February and I put in the last piece yesterday, which was the 2nd of May. That is exactly to the date 9 weeks. So I'm very happy with the time frame in which I did it. That was more or less what I set out for myself to do, and the second half definitely went faster than the first half, believe it or not, but yeah, that happened. I believe anybody can do a bigger puzzle as long as you know it will take longer than 1,000 piece or a 500 piece or even 1,500 piece. The bigger you go, the longer it will take, and as long as you've got patience, you will be able to finish a big puzzle. I know a lot of you is wondering what I will be doing with this puzzle. Some of you suggested that I glue it and hang it in my house. I will not be gluing this puzzle. I will not frame it. I have a wall empty in my house for a puzzle, but I want to frame the map, the 6,000 piece hay map. That's the one that I want on that wall. So this one will go back in the box. Hopefully I will get to it again in my lifetime. If not, I will bag it up in 2 sections, one side and the other, for in case somebody else does it after me and I don't get to it again. But for now, back in the box, and hopefully the plan is for me to do it sometime again in the future. So again, I know a lot of you guys stick to 1,000 piece puzzles, max 1,500 piece, preferably 500. But taking into consideration that these puzzles are so absolutely gorgeous, what is the biggest that you will ever consider if space wasn't a problem? I was in the very fortunate position that my table is big enough to fit the whole puzzle, so I did not have to worry about space. But I know for a lot of puzzlers that is a number one concern. So what is the biggest that you will consider if space wasn't an option? And then I would just like to say thank you for everybody that stick through this series with me. I think it's now 4 videos, and I know it might have gotten somewhat boring at some point, so I will be resuming my normal puzzle schedule for the rest of this month. June, the Puzzle Olympics start, and then that's another event that I'm very much looking forward to. But I'm, for now, looking forward to start with brand reviews and just getting back to a normal puzzle schedule. But again, thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. So I will not attempt a pickup. I know this puzzle will crumble if I attempt that, but I am going to attempt to get on this table for a photo with me on this beautiful puzzle. So keep your fingers crossed that I don't break a leg.